What happens when unstoppable energy collides with unshakable calm? Picture this, a packed hearing room in Washington, cameras rolling, reporters scribbling notes, and millions watching online. On one side you have Representative Jasmine Crockett, fiery, unfiltered, razor-sharp in both wit and words. On the other side sits Dr. Ben Carson, world-renowned neurosurgeon turned conservative political figure, known for his soft-spoken demeanor and steady, almost unshakable composure. Now imagine these two worlds colliding in real time. It wasn't just a debate. It wasn't just another political exchange. What unfolded was something that had people in shock, laughing and debating, long after the moment passed. Because on that day, Crockett didn't just debate Ben Carson. She dismantled his arguments piece by piece, leaving him struggling to recover, and the internet hasn't let him forget it since. But here's the real question. How does a young Democratic congresswoman end up going toe-to-toe with one of the most famous black conservatives in America and come out on top so decisively that the clash became headline news? Think about it. In American politics, we've seen heated exchanges before AOC taking on seasoned Republicans, Ted Cruz sparring with Democrats, Rand Paul tangling with Anthony Fauci. But rarely do we see a generational ideological and cultural showdown as explosive as Jasmine Crockett versus Ben Carson. Because this wasn't just about policy, it was about two very different visions of black leadership in America. Crockett represents a younger, unapologetically progressive movement, bold, combative, unwilling to back down. Carson, meanwhile, embodies a conservative, respectability-driven philosophy, disciplined calm, rooted in personal achievement and faith. And when those two collided, sparks didn't just fly. They ignited a wildfire. Let's pause here for a second. Imagine you're scrolling through your phone. Late at night, TikTok, Instagram, Reels, YouTube Shorts. Suddenly you see a clip. Jasmine Crockett, in her signature sharp tone, leans forward and delivers a line that cuts through the air like a blade. The crowd murmurs, the clip goes viral, and you can't look away. By morning, millions have watched it, millions more are arguing about it, and you're left asking yourself, wait, what exactly happened here? That's the power of this clash. And make no mistake, this wasn't some random outburst. Crockett had receipts, facts, and fiery passion on her side. Carson, known for his intellect and legendary career in medicine, suddenly seemed like he was on the defensive, a place he's not used to being. But here's the kicker. This clash wasn't just entertaining. It exposed a much deeper divide in American politics, one that goes beyond party lines and digs straight into identity, culture, and the future of leadership in this country. So stick around, because in the next few minutes we're going to unpack exactly what went down, the key moments of Crockett's takedown, Carson's reaction, and why this clash matters so much more than just another viral video. By the end, you'll see why commentators are saying this wasn't just a debate moment. This was a turning point. A defining clash of ideas, personalities, and generations. And once you hear the full story, you might never look at either Jasmine Crockett or Ben Carson the same way again. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear isn't just politics. It's drama, it's power, and it's the kind of clash that leaves a permanent mark on the American political stage. After all, politics in America is full of debates, sound bites, and viral moments. But this one hit differently, and for a reason. See, when you strip away the memes, the headlines, and the viral clips, what we're really looking at is a battle between two very different visions of what leadership should look like in America today. And that's exactly why this moment matters, not just for Washington insiders, but for everyday Americans, from students in classrooms to parents at dinner tables, to workers scrolling their phones on break. Because here's the truth, politics isn't just about laws and policies. It's about who gets to define the future. And the Crockett versus Carson clash wasn't simply a shouting match. It was a mirror held up to the nation, reflecting the generational, ideological, and cultural tug-of-war that defines America in 2025. Let's break this down. First, think about representation. Jasmine Crockett is one of the rising stars of the Democratic Party, young, bold, unapologetic. She doesn't tiptoe around her words. She doesn't soften her message to make others comfortable. To some, that's inspiring; to others, it's too much. But love her or hate her, she embodies a new wave of political leadership that refuses to stay quiet. Ben Carson, meanwhile, has a completely different legacy. He's not just a politician, he's a world-class neurosurgeon, a man who literally made history in the operating room. His rise to fame came from hard work, personal discipline, and faith-driven determination. Later, he became a conservative voice in American politics, even serving as Secretary of Housing and Urban Development under President Donald Trump. So when these two collide, you don't just get a disagreement. You get a generational showdown, a clash of two different approaches to success, leadership, and what it means to represent America. And that's why people cared. Because it wasn't just their argument. It was our argument. It was the same kind of argument families have at Thanksgiving tables, co-workers whisper about during breaks, and social media users fight about in the comments section. This clash is about us. So here's what we're going to do in this breakdown. We're not just going to replay the moment and move on. We're going to dig deeper. By the end, you'll understand not only what happened, but why it matters. Here is the roadmap. Problem identification. First, look at the mistakes and misconceptions that fueled this clash. Expose why Carson underestimated Crockett, and why Crockett's approach shocked so many people watching. Myth. Breaking. Then bust open one of the biggest myths in American politics, that calm and quiet always equal strength. Explore how Crockett flipped this idea on its head and what that means for future leaders. Solution 1. After that, talk about how everyday Americans can apply Crockett's strategy of speaking up boldly. Whether you're at schoolwork or even just standing up for yourself in daily life, there are lessons here for all of us. Solution 2. Next, shift gears and highlight a story that shows why Carson's approach patience, discipline, calm still has value. This isn't about one side winning forever. It's about recognizing when each strategy works. The golden nugget. This is where we reveal the ultimate takeaway from this clash. The thing most people missed when they were too busy laughing at the memes or sharing the viral clip. This is the real secret hidden in that explosive moment. Summary. Call to action. Finally, wrap it all up, recap the key points, and challenge you, yes, you watching right now, to think about how you'd handle a clash like this in your own life. That's our journey. Here's why you'll want to stick around until the very last second, because this isn't just a breakdown of a political argument. This is a story about power perception and the future of American leadership. And here is the kicker. The lessons hidden inside this clash could change the way you think about your own voice, your own debates, and your own power to influence the people around you. Whether you're a student learning how to stand up for yourself in class, an employee trying to get your ideas heard in the workplace, or even just someone navigating tough conversations at home, the Crockett versus Carson moment holds lessons for you. And by the time we get to the golden nugget, you'll see exactly how to turn fiery passion into power, or calm composure into undeniable influence. So don't go anywhere, because what started as a shocking clash in a Washington hearing room is about to turn into one of the most important conversations about leadership in America today. Let's start with the obvious. Ben Carson walked into this clash thinking he was untouchable. Why? Because for decades, Carson has relied on a reputation built on brilliance, composure, and personal achievement. When you're the man who separated conjoined twins in a groundbreaking surgery, when your autobiography is required reading in some schools, when your name is synonymous with success against all odds, you get used to people treating you with reverence. But here's the mistake. Carson assumed that respect alone would protect him in a political showdown. That worked in the past. But against Jasmine Crockett, it was like bringing a butter knife to a gunfight. Think about it like this. Imagine you're at work. You've been there for 20 years. You know the company inside and out, and people respect you for your knowledge. Then during a meeting, a younger co-worker, let's say someone who's been with the company for only 2 years, challenges your big idea. You smile, thinking your seniority and reputation will carry you through. You answer calmly, maybe even a little dismissively, but then they don't back down. They bring receipts. They've done the research. They've got energy, passion, and they're speaking the language that connects with everyone else in the room. Suddenly, the respect you thought guaranteed victory doesn't feel like enough. That's exactly what happened to Carson. Carson thought he was playing the old game of politics where calm delivery and past achievements earn you an automatic win. But Crockett was playing a new game. She wasn't relying on polite deference. She was using 3 weapons. Energy. She didn't hold back her tone or passion. In today's political media landscape, energy wins attention. Receipts. Crockett didn't just argue, she cited facts, statistics, and examples that undercut Carson's points. Relatability. She spoke in plain language, not lofty jargon which connected instantly with viewers outside Washington. And here's where Carson stumbled. Instead of adapting to this new style of engagement, he doubled down on his calm, almost detached demeanor. The problem. In a room full of cameras and in a culture addicted to clips and sound bites, detached doesn't look wise anymore. It looks out of touch. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been in an argument where you thought staying calm would make you look smart, only to realize later that everyone thought you looked weak or unprepared? That's the trap Carson fell into. Here is something most people don't realize. Studies on communication show that 55% of persuasion comes from body language and tone, not actual words. Only 7% comes from the content of your argument. So while Carson had calm words, Crockett had fiery delivery. Guess who won the perception game? It's not fair, but it's reality. And Carson's failure to recognize that reality is what made this clash such a train wreck for him. Carson also underestimated something else: generational politics. Jasmine Crockett represents a generation that grew up on social media, cable news battles, and viral moments. She understands that in politics today, it's not just about being right, it is about being memorable. Ben Carson, on the other hand, built his career in a time when prestige and quiet dignity were enough. He was a surgeon, not a soundbite creator. He wasn't trained for this new battlefield, the battlefield of Twitter wars, viral TikToks, and 5-second clips that define reputations overnight. So when Crockett pressed him hard, his responses didn't. And they weren't built for virality. They weren't built for this era. That's a huge blind spot. Let's pull this out of politics for a second. Think about dating in 2025. If you're still writing long love letters or waiting 3 days to call after a date, you're playing by old rules in a world that's moved on to instant messages, memes, and TikTok trends. You'll look out of step no matter how sincere you are. That's Carson. He was trying to win in 2025 using a playbook from 1995. Here is another layer. Crockett didn't just argue policy, she argued with emotion. She framed her points in ways that made people feel the stakes. That's a skill Americans respond to deeply. Remember, politics isn't math. It's theater. It's storytelling. It's about who can make people care. And while Carson gave people facts, Crockett gave people a story. That story of standing up, refusing to be silenced, cutting through respectability politics, connected emotionally in a way Carson's measured responses simply couldn't. So let me throw this to you. When you're in a debate, whether online, at school, or at work, do you think it's more important to stay calm and collected, or to speak with passion and energy? Drop your answer in the comments, because this is the exact dilemma Carson faced, and it cost him dearly. By the end of the exchange, Carson wasn't just losing the argument, he was losing the crowd. And in today's world, the crowd doesn't just mean the people in the room. It means the millions watching online. It means the hashtags trending on Twitter. It means the late-night hosts who will turn your worst 5 seconds into a punchline. Carson underestimated how quickly the narrative could turn against him. He thought staying calm would protect him. Instead, it left him defenseless. So here's the problem, plain and simple. Carson played defense in a game that requires offense. In a political landscape where perception matters as much as policy, Crockett went on the attack with passion, facts, and relatability. Carson relied on reputation and composure, and it wasn't enough. That's why he never recovered. Not because he wasn't smart enough, not because he didn't have points to make, but because he failed to adapt to the reality of modern political combat. And that's the deeper truth here. It's not about Crockett being loud or Carson being quiet. It's about recognizing that in America today, the rules of persuasion have changed. Those who adapt win. Those who don't get left behind. For decades, Americans have been taught one simple lesson. Stay calm and you'll win respect. It's drilled into us from childhood. Teachers tell students not to raise their voice. Bosses say, keep your cool in meetings. Parents remind kids, don't get too emotional, that's how you lose the argument. And in politics, this myth has reigned supreme. Leaders who stay collected are painted as wise, while those who show fire are branded as angry or out of control. But here's the shocking truth that myth is dead. In today's America, calm doesn't automatically equal strength. Sometimes it equals invisibility, and Jasmine Crockett proved that in her clash with Ben Carson. Here is what Crockett did differently. Instead of dialing down her passion, she leaned into it. She didn't try to out Carson, she didn't try to be calm and detached. She brought heat. She raised her voice. She let her frustration show. And guess what? People connected with it. Because in a political era dominated by viral clips, being passionate isn't a liability anymore. It's currency. Crockett flipped the script by proving that strength today looks less like a quiet professor and more like a bold advocate who refuses to be silenced. Think about it. Imagine a heated family argument at the dinner table. One sibling calmly repeats, "Well, I think him right," while another sibling passionately points out all the evidence, slams their hand on the table and refuses to back down. Who does the family remember later? Who makes the impact? It's not the calm voice, it's the passionate one. That doesn't mean calm has no value. But in terms of attention, memory, and persuasion, passion wins, and that's exactly what Crockett brought into that clash. Here is something you probably didn't know. Neuroscience studies show that when people hear passionate speech, their brains release dopamine and adrenaline chemicals that make them feel alert, excited, and engaged. In other words, passion literally wakes people up. Calm speech, by contrast, doesn't trigger the same response. So when Crockett came in with fiery energy, she wasn't just speaking. She was activating the audience's brains. Carson's calm, measured tone couldn't compete. Now let's be clear, Carson's calm style wasn't wrong. In another era it would have worked, but here's the problem. Carson assumed that Crockett's passion would make her look unhinged or emotional. He expected viewers to side with him because he stayed level-headed. Instead, viewers saw authenticity. They saw a woman who cared deeply and wasn't afraid to show it. And in a media ecosystem built on emotion from reality TV to TikTok, rants, authenticity beats composure almost every time. Let me throw this at you. When you watch a debate, do you connect more with the calm voice of reason or the fiery voice of passion? Think about the last time you scrolled YouTube or Instagram. Did you stop for the person quietly explaining something or the one who grabbed your attention with intensity? Drop your answer in the comments, because your reaction is the exact reason Crockett's myth-busting worked. Here's another angle. This isn't just about style. It's about a generational shift in how Americans define leadership. Older generations grew up with leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Ronald Reagan, or even Barack Obama, figures known for composure, cadence, and control. Calm strength was the gold standard. But younger generations have grown up in a different media world. They're used to raw live streams, passionate rants, and leaders who wear their emotions on their sleeves. For Gen Z and younger millennials, passion doesn't signal weakness, it signals realness. That's why Crockett resonated with younger audiences while Carson looked outdated. Imagine two teachers. Teacher A delivers lessons calmly with little variation in tone. Teacher B, on the other hand, is animated, pacing the room, raising their voice for emphasis, cracking jokes, telling stories. Which class do students actually remember? Which class do they talk about after school? Teacher B every time. That's what happened here. Carson was Teacher A. Crockett was Teacher B. And in the classroom of public opinion, Crockett won the day. Here is a fun twist. Abraham Lincoln, often remembered as calm and measured, was known in his time for giving fiery, emotional speeches. Historians say that his ability to stir passion in crowds was one of his greatest strengths. So, The idea that calm equals strength. Even history doesn't back it up. Passion has always been a weapon of leaders. We just forgot. So why are we spending so much time busting this myth? Because the way we define strength in leaders shapes how we vote, how we argue, and how we show up in our own lives. If we cling to the old myth, that calm equals strong, we risk silencing passionate voices, especially women and people of color, by labeling them as too emotional. But if we embrace the truth, Crockett showed that passion is power, then we open the door for a new kind of leadership that reflects America's real diversity of voices. What Crockett taught us is simple. You don't have to shrink your passion to be taken seriously. In fact, passion may be the very thing that makes people listen. It's not about being reckless or rude. It's about refusing to dim your fire in spaces where people expect you to stay quiet. That's the myth she broke wide open. But here's the kicker. Crockett's passion alone wasn't the whole story, because while passion can grab attention, it doesn't always hold it. That's where strategy comes in. And in the next section, we'll talk about the first solution, how you can use Crockett's approach in your own daily life to speak up, be heard, and command respect without holding back. Because this isn't just about politicians. This is about you, your voice, your power. So get ready. Because if you've ever felt silenced, overlooked, or underestimated, the next section is going to show you how to flip the script. So we've seen how Jasmine Crockett broke the myth that calm always equals strength. But here's the real question. What does that mean for you? Because let's be honest, most of us aren't going to face off against Ben Carson in a packed congressional hearing. But all of us face situations where our voice feels small, where we're tempted to stay calm and quiet, even when we know we should speak up. At school, at work, at home, in our relationships, even in the grocery store when someone cuts the line. Crockett's approach gives us a roadmap, and the first solution we can learn from her clash is this: don't confuse politeness with power. Now, don't get me wrong, being respectful matters. Nobody's saying you should scream at your boss or insult your teacher. But politeness, when it turns into silence, becomes a trap. That's what Carson fell into. He relied so much on staying polite that he came off as passive. Crockett, on the other hand, refused to let politeness silence her passion. She found a balance fiery but factual, passionate but purposeful. And that's the first big takeaway. It's okay to be loud when the moment calls for it. Imagine you're in a classroom. A teacher asks for opinions on a controversial issue. One student calmly states their view. Another student passionately defends their position with energy, hand gestures, and conviction. Which student does the room remember? Which one actually changes minds? It's the passionate one, because passion makes people listen. So the next time you're in class and you have something important to say, don't just whisper it politely. Channel Crockett. Put energy behind it. Make people feel your words, not just hear them, but passion alone isn't enough. Crockett didn't just yell at Carson. She came armed with facts. And that's the formula we can all use. Facts plus fire equals impact. If you show passion but no substance, people tune you out. If you show facts but no passion, people forget you. Put them together. That's when you leave a mark. Let's say you're in a work meeting and you've got an idea that could save the team time and money. If you quietly mention it, it might get overlooked. If you passionately argue for it but don't have data, people might dismiss it. But if you come in with energy and numbers like, this plan could cut our costs by 15 and save us 10 hours a week, suddenly people are listening. That's Crockett's strategy. She didn't just clap back at Carson. She brought evidence to back it up. Here is something for you to think about. When was the last time you stayed silent because you didn't want to seem too much? What would have happened if you had spoken with Crockett-level passion and backed it up with receipts? Drop your story in the comments. You might inspire someone else to finally speak up. Or not. Her key part of Crockett's success was presence. She didn't just sit back and let the moment happen. She leaned in. She used her body language. She controlled the rhythm of the exchange. And here's the truth: presence is half the battle. Whether you're presenting a project, asking for a raise, or giving a wedding toast, the way you carry yourself often matters more than the exact words you say. Picture this. You walk into your boss's office to ask for a raise. Option A. You slouch in the chair, speak softly, and say, I was just wondering if maybe I could get a little raise. Option B. You sit up straight, look your boss in the eye, and say, I've contributed to 3 major projects this year that increased revenue by 20. I believe that deserves recognition in my pay. Which one sounds more convincing? That's presence. That's power. That's Crockett's playbook in action. Did you know a Harvard Business Review study found that employees who speak with confidence are 25 times more likely to be promoted, even when their ideas are no better than their quieter peers? That means it's not just about what you say. It's about how you say it. Now here's where people get it twisted. Being passionate doesn't mean yelling all the time. It means being authentic. Crockett wasn't putting on a show. She genuinely cared. That's why her words hit so hard. People can smell fake passion a mile away, but real passion, that's magnetic. So the question isn't, should I be louder? It's, what do I care about so much that I can't stay quiet? Think about relationships. If you're upset with your partner and you stay calm but detached, they might think you don't care. But if you speak from the heart, even if your voice cracks or your tone rises, they'll feel your authenticity. Passion, when it comes from love or conviction, builds trust. Finally, Crockett's approach teaches us this: passion is just the spark. What matters is what you do with it. She didn't just clap back at Carson for the sake of it. She redirected that energy into highlighting policy issues, bringing attention to topics that matter. That's the real secret. Use your fire to point people towards solutions, not just problems. Let's say you're fired up about something in your neighborhood, maybe unsafe roads or a lack of community programs. You can rant about it online all day, but if you take that passion to a city council meeting with facts and a plan, you might actually get results. That's Crockett-level power. So let me ask you this. What issue in your life or community fires you up so much that you'd be willing to speak out about it? Write it down. Say it out loud. That's the first step to turning passion into action. Here is the solution summed up in one formula you can apply anywhere. Authenticity, presence, facts, passion equals influence. That's what Crockett brought to the clash, and that's what you can bring to your school, your job, your relationships, or your community. Stop confusing politeness with power. Stop shrinking your voice to make others comfortable. Speak up with fire, back it up with facts, and own the room. That's not just Crockett's strategy. That can be yours too. But here's the thing, passion and presence aren't the only tools. Because as much as Crockett's fire worked in this moment, there are times when Carson's calm has its own kind of power. So far, we've focused on Jasmine Crockett's firepower, her ability to command attention with passion and facts. But here's the truth. Not every battle is won with fire. Sometimes calm isn't weakness. Sometimes calm is the superpower. And that's where Ben Carson's style comes in. Because while he may have lost this particular clash with Crockett, his calm, deliberate approach has carried him through some of the most intense, high-pressure situations imaginable. And when used in the right context, it's just as powerful as Crockett's passion. Let's rewind. Long before Carson was in politics, he was in the operating room, literally holding lives in his hands. One of his most famous surgeries was the separation of conjointures. Ned twins, a procedure that had been attempted before but rarely succeeded. Imagine the stakes: 2 children's lives intertwined, every movement of the scalpel a matter of life or death. Now picture trying to perform that surgery while yelling, ranting, or letting your emotions spill over. Impossible, right? Carson's calm wasn't just a personality trait. It was survival. It was the reason he could make decisions under pressure, block out noise, and keep his team focused. That's the lesson: sometimes calm saves lives. Here is the thing. In today's loud, fast-paced, social media-driven world, Crockett's fiery style often wins the spotlight. But calm has a quiet power of its own. Calm builds trust. Calm signals control. Calm creates a sense of safety for people who are scared or overwhelmed. In fact, studies in psychology show that when leaders stay calm in crisis situations, followers are more likely to remain calm themselves. That ripple effect can prevent chaos. So while Crockett's fire might light a movement, Carson's calm can steady it. Think about parenting for a second. A child falls and scrapes their knee. If the parent panics, yelling, crying, freaking out, the child panics even more. But if the parent stays calm, soothing their child, cleaning the wound, and reassuring them, the child feels safe. That's the Carson approach. Calm in chaos. Here is a simple trick you can steal from Carson's playbook: pause before you respond. Carson is known for his slow, deliberate speaking style. Critics say it makes him seem disengaged, but fans argue it shows thoughtfulness. Try it yourself the next time someone challenges you in a heated debate, whether it's at work, in class, or online. Pause for 2 seconds before answering. That pause does 3 things. It calms your own nerves. It makes the other person lean in, waiting for your response. It signals control. You're not rattled, you're composed. That's a power move, and it's one anyone can use. Here is a wild stat: research shows that people who speak more slowly are often perceived as more credible and intelligent, even if their actual words aren't any better. That means Carson's calm, measured pace wasn't just style. It tapped into a subconscious bias in how we judge leaders. So while he may have looked too calm against Crockett in a different context, say a crisis speech or a serious interview, that very style gives him authority. Here is the big idea. You don't have to choose between Crockett and Carson. Life isn't about being fiery all the time or calm all the time. It's about knowing when to switch gears. Crockett's style works when you need to spark energy, demand attention, or challenge authority. Carson's style works when you need to soothe fears, show wisdom, or make thoughtful decisions under pressure. True power isn't one or the other. It's both. Let's imagine a workplace scenario. 2 co-workers are fighting during a meeting. The room is tense, voices are raised, and everyone feels uncomfortable. If you jump in with Crockett-style fire, you might escalate the conflict. But if you channel Carson, calm, steady, collected, you can diffuse the tension. You might say, "Let's take a breath." Here is what I'm hearing from both sides. Suddenly people relax, the room stabilizes. That's calm leadership in action. So here's a question for you. Do you see yourself as more of a Crockett, fiery and bold, or a Carson, calm and steady? And more importantly, when was the last time calm helped you win, or passion helped you lose? Share your story, because these real-life examples are where the lessons really sink in. Let me tell you a quick story. A college student I met once told me they always panicked during tests. Their heart would race, their hands would sweat, and they'd rush through answers. Then one semester, a professor gave them a piece of advice. Slow down, breathe. Pretend you're Carson in the operating room. The student tried it. Before answering each question, they paused, took a deep breath, and then responded. Not only did their grades improve, but their confidence did too. That's the Carson effect: calm under pressure. Now let's be clear. Carson's mistake in the clash with Crockett wasn't that he was calm. His mistake was relying on calm as a default, even when passion was needed. And that's the real lesson for us. Calm is powerful, but only when it's a strategy, not a crutch. If you use calm to avoid conflict, you lose. But if you use calm to lead others through conflict, you win. And here is where it all comes together. Because the real secret isn't about choosing between fire and calm. The real secret, the golden nugget, is about mastering both. Knowing when to bring Crockett's fire and when to channel Carson's calm. That's the ultimate power move. Here it is. The secret. The ultimate takeaway from this shocking clash between Jasmine Crockett and Ben Carson. It's not that Crockett is always right because she's fiery. It's not that Carson is always right because he's calm. It's that true power lies in knowing when to be fire and when to be calm. That's the golden nugget. Think about it, most of us lean one way or the other. Some of us are naturally Crockett types, bold, outspoken, unafraid to challenge anyone. Others are more like Carson, thoughtful, measured, deliberate. But life doesn't reward extremes. Life rewards adaptability. The leaders who truly change history aren't the ones stuck in one mode. They're the ones who can switch gears, who know when to roar like a lion and when to move like water. That's what Crockett and Carson teach us, not separately but together. And here's why this lesson hits home for America right now. We live in a nation that feels divided, pulled apart by noise, outrage, and constant conflict. Some voices scream louder and louder while others retreat into silence. But what if the future of America isn't about choosing between fire or calm? What if the future is about leaders and everyday people who can balance both? Imagine politicians who know when to fight passionately for justice, but also when to sit down calmly to negotiate solutions. Imagine parents who know when to raise, see their voice to protect their kids, but also when to stay calm to guide them. Imagine you knowing when to unleash your fire and when to anchor yourself in calm. That balance could change everything. There was a high school debate team in Texas that was struggling. Half the students were fiery, they'd go in guns blazing, tearing opponents apart. The other half were calm, precise, calculated, but sometimes too quiet to land a punch. They kept losing. Then their coach said something brilliant. You don't need to change who you are. You need to learn when to switch. So they practiced balance. The fiery debaters learned when to slow down, pause, and let their arguments breathe. The calm debaters learned when to raise their voices and seize attention. Guess what happened? That team went on to win the state championship. That's the power of balance. That's the golden nugget. So here's the question: how do you apply this lesson in your own life? Simple. Start paying attention to your natural style. Are you more Crockett fiery, passionate, outspoken, or more Carson calm, steady, reflective? Then ask yourself, in the next conflict you face, what's missing. If you're usually fiery, maybe the golden move is to slow down, breathe, and let calm carry the day. If you're usually calm, maybe the golden move is to step up, speak louder, and let fire do the talking. That one adjustment could transform the outcome. At the end of the day, Crockett and Carson may forever be remembered for this clash, one fiery, one calm. But if you look deeper, you'll see that neither side lost. Because both represent strengths we need in America and in ourselves. The real secret isn't to choose one side. The real secret is to master both. And when you do, when you learn to control fire and calm, you become unstoppable. We started with a clash, Jasmine Crockett versus Ben Carson, a fiery new voice colliding with a calm, seasoned presence. At first, at glance, it looked like just another viral political fight, something to laugh about or argue over online. But as we dug deeper, we discovered that it was about so much more. It was about two leadership styles colliding, fire and calm. It was about America's generational divide. It was about the way we as everyday people navigate conflict in our own lives. Here is the journey we took. Problem identification. Carson underestimated Crockett's boldness, and Crockett shocked everyone with her unapologetic fire. Myth breaking. We busted the myth that calm always equals strength. Sometimes fire is what gets the job done. Solution 1. Crockett showed us how boldness can inspire change and how we can all use that fire in daily life to stand up for ourselves. Solution 2. Carson reminded us that calm isn't weakness, it's strategy. Calm steadies the storm, builds trust, and can save the day when used wisely. The golden nugget. True power isn't choosing one or the other. It's knowing when to switch, when to ignite the fire, and when to anchor in calm. That's the secret. That's the real lesson of the clash. And it matters, because America isn't just looking for leaders. America is looking for balance. We don't need leaders who scream all the time. We don't need leaders who hide behind silence. We need leaders and citizens who know when to fight passionately and when to steady the room with calm, because that balance isn't just good politics, it's good living. Think about it in your work, your school, your family, your friendships. You face conflicts and choices every single day, and every one of those moments is an opportunity to practice the balance of fire and calm. Master it, and you'll be unstoppable. Here's what I want you to remember. You don't have to be a politician to use this lesson. You don't need a microphone, a title, or a platform. You just need the courage to recognize when to raise your voice and when to steady it. Because in your own way, you're already leading. You're leading in your workplace. You're leading in your family. You're leading in your community. And the people who follow you, whether it's one person or 100, don't need perfection. They need balance. So be bold when the moment demands it. Be calm when the moment requires it. And above all, remember the future belongs to those who can master both. Now, I want to hear from you. Are you more of a Jasmine Crockett, fiery, passionate, unapologetic? Or are you more of a Ben Carson, calm, measured, deliberate? And here's the real challenge. How will you use the golden nugget, the balance between fire and calm in your own life this week? Drop your answer in the comments. Let's make this a conversation, not just a video. And if this breakdown made you think differently about leadership conflict, or even yourself, then do me a favor. Hit the like button. Subscribe for more deep dives like this. Share this with a friend who needs to hear it. Because the more we talk about this balance, the stronger we all become. Jasmine Crockett versus Ben Carson wasn't just a clash. It was a classroom. And if you were paying attention, the lesson was simple but life-changing. Real power isn't fire. Real power isn't calm. Real power is knowing when to be both.